Hello, everyone. I'm Devyn Gaydos, the marketing manager here at ClearEdge, and welcome back to Spark the Space, where the ClearEdge team shares all of our knowledge, expertise, and inspiration with you so that your marketing can be better than ever. Today's episode is very special because I'm actually joined by ClearEdge's founder and CEO, Leslie Vickrey, and today we're talking about something pretty dang important. So recent numbers from SIA are suggesting that the Americas staffing industry is expected to grow 5% this year in 2025, which is a huge shift from the 9% decline we saw last year in 2024. And one of the ways that we're seeing firms grow strategically and quickly is through mergers and acquisitions. So today we're going to dive into what staffing leaders can do to set the tone for a merger or an acquisition happening at your firm and make sure that it happens well and it hits your goals. So to kick us off, Leslie, what sort of role does a leadership team play in making an M&A successful? What should they feel responsible for?
Okay, Devyn, first of all, thank you for having me. And second of all, it's an honor to be your next guest.
We finally
I
got you
love it.
on.
I love it. And this topic is so critically important to our industry and to leaders. And as you know, you and I partnered on an article with SIA for my column that we write called The One Thing. And it actually sparked, speaking of sparking the space, a lot of conversation and executives and companies reaching out to dive a little bit deeper into the topic. So I'm super excited to be covering that with you here today because obviously it's really top of mind for a lot. And quite frankly, having been over many years in the industry, through some of the industry's largest mergers and acquisitions and some smaller ones, I've seen a lot that has gone really well and things that haven't gone so well. And a big part of that is the leadership team. They really play a critical role in ensuring the success of MA. And what I would say is, yes, the deal execution is obviously a really important part of that, but they're really responsible for setting the vision and maintaining the stability and aligning teams under what I would call a shared purpose. So their job is really to make sure that employees, clients, and any stakeholder that they feel confident in the transition. So to me, what that means is just being really proactive. You've got to anticipate challenges, address concerns head on, ensure that the integration isn't just about business operations. It's about the people really behind it. So really specifically just to say too, with the intentional piece, yes, with the people, but it's also the technology and the branding. So oftentimes, depending on the merger and acquisition, they could have different tech stacks. So if it's their ATS, their CRM, payroll, any kind of communication platform, you want to make sure that there's a plan that the teams can actually work seamlessly across these systems. And with marketing and branding, of course, it's a huge role in making the transition clear and really compelling for all audiences. A really strong brand strategy, it ensures that the employees feel connected. If it's a new identity, if its identity is kind of coming together and you're keeping one, you want to make it really clear behind the why and what that looks like. And then clients can remain really engaged and confident in that company's direction. And then finally, I'll just say, they need to really think of themselves, leaders from both sides, the two companies, as kind of bridge builders. They should take ownership of merging, again, not just the systems and processes, but the cultures, the values, the way that people are working. It's not all about numbers. Yes, it's obviously critically important, the numbers, but people want to feel like they belong to the future of the organization.
That's so true because it's such a stressful time. It is so stressful going through a merger and an acquisition. And yeah, leadership can just play such a valuable role in things beyond signing on the dotted line. One of the things you mentioned is leaders being confident. They're those bridge builders, they're working together and they're promoting this merger and acquisition happening. So, how can you make sure that a leadership team communicates not just a confident message, but also a consistent one during a time when there may not be definitive answers, things might be changing a lot? What can they do to be confident and consistent?
Okay, I love this question, Devin, because I grew up in the staffing industry in internal communications to start, and I worked on a lot of M&A communications. And again, you learn a lot as you go along. So I would urge people who are kind of doing this for the first time, if you're being acquired or the acquirer, ask people for help and get
Mm-hmm.
some really great advice from those who have been through it. Because honestly, when you feel like you're in that transaction mode, you're kind of hiding it to a certain degree from people because things could fall apart. You're negotiating, you're not sure what's going to happen. And then once you get to that moment where this is happening, the ink is
Mm-hmm.
drying, we need people to feel really confident. At that point, transparency really becomes everything. Employees don't expect leaders to have all of the answers. At least I hope that they not, because we do not have all of the answers. But they do expect honesty and consistency. So if you're vague or inconsistent, it kind of opens the door for fear and uncertainty to take over. So, one of the best things I think they can do is really establish early on messaging pillars. And I know I'm a little biased on this because I come from communications, but lean on someone in marketing who you can trust, bring into the fold, and really set those pillars. Keep it simple, 3 to 5
Mm-hmm.
core pillars or messages that really guide every communication. And if you think about what people want to hear, it should reinforce stability, your vision, and the why behind the merger. And then that way, every time you have a communication come out, they start to consistently hear that message over and over again. So it's really important to think about all stakeholders get that message at the right time. So if it's branded email
Mm-hmm.
campaigns, FAQs that you're sending out, I love interactive town halls, and
Mm-hmm.
best practice that can really elevate that communication, just to make sure you're not in a reactive state where you're constantly getting those inbound questions. And I would say leverage the technology that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Every communication, and we leverage a lot of different tools at ClearEdge too, but it can be internet portals, if you have Slack channels, even AI powered chatbots to answer employee questions in real time. And if you're working with your marketing and communications team to have those FAQs planned out, you should be able to, figure out different channels to answer those in really effective ways. And it's okay. Listen, sometimes you're going to get asked a question that you don't know the answer to. Knowing what are some of those questions and prepping for it, and then also saying, you know what, we don't know yet, but here's what we do know, and
Mm-hmm.
here's how I'm going to keep you informed. That transparency really builds that trust, which is so important at that time. So be consistent, be, transparent, and engage that communication across multiple platforms. And, in all of those, it's just going to make for a much smoother transition.
We say it all the time for marketing, but like you need to hit people over and over and over again with the same message for it to really stick. And it applies here too. It's that same thing. Say the same thing across the channels, be as consistent as possible. And I personally, speaking as an employee, I love when my leaders say we don't know yet. That means so much to me, that so much trust. That gives me permission to say, I don't know yet,
Right.
and so that's such a great builder for even beyond a merger. Like that means so much. I love those suggestions. And one of the things that we kind of touched on there is that this is going beyond signing on the dotted line. This is moving into company culture. So
Mhm.
what can leaders do to make sure that their teams merge from a company culture standpoint rather than just kind of fight it out to see whose culture is going to be the one that wins?
It's a huge percentage of M&As that fail, and
Hmm.
a big piece of it is the culture component. And you start to build this us versus them mindset. And the most important thing you can do is really kind of shift that mindset as leaders. And once they hear it from leaders, it'll kind of have that trickle down effect. But what's best for our future together? Because now you're, together working as a unit. So too often we think about the integration from an operational perspective only. It's critical to say who uses which systems and processes, of course, but sometimes that culture gets left behind. So you really need to have an intentional approach to working on the culture. So it feels like you're working together and kind of
Hmm.
creating those shared experiences and moments together. You can start by saying there's shared values. So
Hmm.
instead of defaulting to maybe the acquiring company's culture, you
Yeah.
should look at ways you can define what a new or combined culture would look like. I really love listening. sessions where you're really there to listen. And that's it. You want to listen and conduct surveys. You want to understand what people value the most out of their cultures. So if you ask on each company what employees value the most and you have those listening sessions and or conduct surveys, you can take that information and start to create what is the best of both. And certainly you're going to find a like in each and bring people together in that way. And then again, I'm biased because I'm in marketing, but I will say, having this a lot, leverage marketing to help drive that cultural integration. No one function, if it's HR or the C-suite, executives who have been involved in that transaction, kind of taking these things on, you all should be in it together. And that's often overlooked as far as bringing marketing in to help drive it, especially if you don't have a strong internal communications team. To think about marketing only externally, there's also really great opportunities to leverage it internally, but it's often overlooked. So think about storytelling. It can play a huge role in bringing teams together, creating those kind of internal campaigns and really just those branding elements to bring that together as a shared value. Try to make that new culture feel tangible. You can
Mhm.
see it, touch it, feel it, all the things. And I will say, and I feel this way strongly about ClearEdge, culture it's the heart of any business. So
Mhm.
you don't actively look at ways as leaders to shape it, you're going to default and it'll default back to that kind of siloed approach and it'll become a power struggle. And you do not want that. So the goal should be integration, not domination.
I love that. Can we make together the word of the year if you're going through a merger and acquisition? Together, do things together, to even just go into the situation with that mindset, to think, how can I involve more people? How can I listen to more people? How can we engage more folks? That's, yeah, just a huge difference. So, Leslie, thank you so much for joining me today. If you
Of
guys are
course.
listening, you can connect with Leslie on LinkedIn. And as always, you can visit meetclearedge.com to get in touch with us about all that we do at ClearEdge, including how we can support your upcoming merger or acquisition alongside our marketing, our recruiting, and our leadership development services. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.